Hello, my name is Sam.
Hey there, I'm Kerri.
And we're the Marriage Guides.
Yes.
And both of us are marriage and family therapists. And we have a saying that not everyone needs to see a therapist, but everyone could benefit from what a therapist sees. And so we like to just have conversations about marriage and relationships and things we kind of pick up along the way. And we wanted to have a way to just kind of share some of those things and kind of allow people to see into some of those conversations. That's what's going on.
Yes. Stories from our own marriage, stories from what we've seen come across in our practice, and just working with people in general.
Yep, and things we read and and learn and that kind of stuff too.
All right.
So, I want to start out today's conversation talking about something that hit me. How many of you know that, right, a lot of people, we just say, someone says, well, where do you want to go to eat?
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And what happened in a session for me was I saw somebody who is very easygoing. Okay? Low maintenance, easygoing, and frequently defers on those kinds of situations, right?
Okay.
So almost always does what his,
That's a recipe for disaster, I think.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, because, think about it. It's like, well, it's less conflict. I just go along. And I would say that internally, many times, these people really don't have a preference on that.
Sure.
Okay, so they really don't care. But then, the shocking thing that I discovered is that they have no way to resolve conflict. And I was like, wow, here's a person who is incredibly easygoing, and yet they seem to be unable to resolve any conflict. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And so this was my premise. And so this is what I want to discuss. So to me, what it seemed like is that he doesn't present his preference unless it meets a certain criteria. Okay, so like many times, I really don't care. I mean, maybe I would have preferred to go, but it's like, it's not worth sort of having an argument about, so I'll just run with that one. Okay, but internally, I think he's saying we chalked one up for the other person. Like, he's saying...
Maybe even mentally keeping score?
Yeah, like the other person...
It's like I gave into this, gave into this, gave into this without the other person knowing.
Yeah, so check mark, check mark, check mark.
Okay.
That I'm giving in. So I'm taking loss on whether we went to Burger King or Chick-fil-A. Right? Or some really low, but a really low level decision is what I'm getting at. And yet, they may be adding that up as a win. And so then when it comes to some decision of like where to put a piece of furniture or something that they kind of really have a strong opinion on.
What area to buy a house in or something.
Yeah. Or whether to or not. It's like absolutely not. So he
comes in strong with an opinion.
So the very first time he introduces a preference or an opinion, it's a must meet. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So instead of it being, hey, I'm thinking about this, and now we have this discussion around it.
Which I think would feel very demanding and controlling to the other person.
Isn't that interesting? Because I think that's exactly how it feels. Mm-hmm. They feel that it's demanding and controlling. But this person, I think, internally is thinking, well, it's 400 to 1. Right? I've given up 400 of these things, and now I have one thing that I want, and you won't do anything.
Wow. Okay.
But the reality is they're not discussing any of them. And so my thought was that they may actually, he or she, may need to give a lot more opinion or impression about the smaller decisions and not only speak up. So that was the problem. The problem is that there isn't like a seemingly going back and forth or learning that process on the little things, so that we're only doing it when...
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. There's something, I think, an analogy you shared a long time ago that I still use today. But when we... Hollywood, I don't know who does this in real life, really. But when you travel, either you put one of those little push pins that have the little color balls on the end, but you put a push pin on the map. We actually went to an ice cream place. Was it Coconut Glens in Maui?
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So, but they had, so the people who would come and visit them would then put their pin on where they were visiting from. So a little twist on that. But the idea is in this situation, I think, is like if the more times you can put a push pin in the map to let your partner know, hey, I'm thinking this, or I'm feeling this, or my preference is this, then your partner knows where you are, and we can judge how close proximity you are.
Right. It's so interesting, because what you just said about that, like knowing where your partner is, I think in some ways, the original person I'm talking about, the person who doesn't say much, they may not actually know what they need themselves. Mm-hmm. And how difficult it is. Like if nothing registers, then they go along with it because the other person is able to register something. But really what needs to happen is we take the time to really figure out, do I like this or do I not like this? And sometimes, because I think the thing is that frequently there is a preference, it just may be uncovered. Sure. Or it's hidden. It's covered
up. Yeah. It's covered up. That's true. I mean, I'm such an internal processor that if there's something in the moment, I may not know what it is that needs to come out. But then later I might go, no, this is not what I want.
Right.
Right? But it takes time for me to register that. And not all people take the time or have the time to do that, depending on the circumstance.
But I think if you don't and you begin to just agree, I think regret can form.
Yes.
Because later it's like, man, we've made a bunch of little decisions here, and now we're deep into this, and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. But you've been saying, by not saying, you've been saying yes all along.
You've been in agreement by not saying anything at all.
And then I think that comes out as real tension inside.
Right. Bitterness and even possibly resentment, which is really difficult because then, what comes out when you do have a preference and you do come out, I would imagine all the resentment that's been bottled up will also come out with it.
Right. So I think it's I don't know. I think the key is, one, you got to dig in. And I was thinking about the Runaway Bride.
Yes.
Just that, you know.
What kind of eggs
do you like?
Yeah.
And she's like, or the different fiancés that had been run away. Oh, that's easy. She liked them just the way I did. And then each fiancé said something different. Like a different type of eggs. So clearly the Julia Roberts character in there had not taken the time to determine what kind of eggs she liked. And then what we see is she's at the altar and she can't make the decisions. Like she realizes the big decision is wrong, but she's been saying yes to all the little ones.
Yes.
I'm kind of rewriting that narrative for this, but I think that really is true in a sense.
Yes.
And so until she sits down and discovers what kind of eggs she likes, and I think it's like literally, do I like this or do I not like this?
And I think even, like I told you, for me, being more of an internal processor, like even that whole, what restaurant do you want to go to or where do you want to eat? Early on in our marriage, I would do that. It doesn't really matter. But then we'd get somewhere and I was like, I don't really find anything here I'm interested in, kind of thing. So then, we kind of figured out a way to make it okay in the relationship for me to just try to process, what type of food do you want?
Right.
Or price range. That would be the next thing. So I may want Ruth's Chris, but he's thinking, $10 a person price range.
That's right.
So we kind of figured out how to navigate through that in a few minutes. And so then even last week I asked you if you wanted to go to lunch. It was very impromptu.
Yes.
It's like, hey, do you want to go to lunch? And he was like, yes. And so then I put out a few different options.
Right.
I put out, in a similar price range, but slightly different. But I put out, I think, 3 options. And then you're just like, okay, great, let's go. So.
I think this actually, that right there kind of, it's like when the original question asker of, hey, do you want to do this? If they will be vulnerable and share a little bit of the thoughts they have about where, what, why they're wanting to do, I think it gives the person who's receiving the information a lot more. I don't think we've shared this in this video, but I remember there was a woman once who, so she had just taken the afternoon and had 2 toddlers at Chuck E. Cheese for a birthday. Right? I mean, this is the environment that I can't even think of a more stressful I mean, in some ways it's stressful. Sometimes it's not. In a sense it's contained, but you're having to chase these kids, and kids are bouncing off the walls like somebody teed off a golf ball. You know, I mean, it is just, it's just crazy. And the environment's loud and it's chaotic, and so she gets out of there, and there's this specific, in our area, there's a Chuck E. Cheese right next to a Trader Joe's.
Yes.
So she comes out of Trader Joe's, and she gets on the phone with her husband, and she's basically, I need to take care of myself.
I don't think she said that, right?
No.
She didn't say that to her husband.
But she's like, I am stressed out. I'm at the end of my rope, and I think I don't want to cook. So I just want to go into Trader Joe's and get, how much are those salads? Like $3, $5, $4 salads. One of those little pre-packed. I just need to get a little salad. And so she calls her husband and says this is her plan. And I
remember this story.
He says, well, we have lettuce at home.
Wrong answer. Just so you know, any husbands, wives out there. Wrong answer.
Well, but again, from his perspective, they've been having conversations about the budget.
Yes.
And spending money. And so he heard this is the opportunity to say,
let's save $4.
Let's save $4. We got lettuce at home. But he had no clue of the backstory.
Yes.
I am stressed out of my mind. I just need to relax. I don't want to have to fix anything. And I think it's those kinds of backstories, those few extra sentences that would save couples so much heartache.
Once again, to me, that's the push pin on the map.
Yes.
That's just the explanation. So before you open your mouth to ask a question, make a statement, or demand some sort of response, do a little thinking so that you can give those couple of sentences. Because I think we've said in another episode, we can't read minds.
No.
Cannot read minds. And we cannot read motives. And if what comes out oftentimes will trigger an assumption going on here. And it can be related to past history, even way past beyond the relationship, that triggers something. But if you say something like that, the assumption, even with this particular couple, the assumption is, you don't care about me, you don't love me, and that I need to take care of myself. And that
absolutely, that became the assumption.
Her response becomes incredibly defensive, and she'll either do one of about three things. She'll shut down, she'll blow up, or she'll attack.
Right. And he's like, I'm just trying to hold the family together. I'm just trying to help us stick to the plan. And when we processed that and we got to what was underneath, literally, he would have bought her $4 salads all day long, right? I mean, it had nothing to do with that, but he was seeing this part, and she was seeing that part, and they didn't communicate, and so then they had this kind of a huge...
It blows up.
Yeah.
All right.
So...
I think we did it.
Recap a little bit. One is... Find out what your preference is. Don't just say, I don't care. Mm-hmm. I know there's time and a place to say, no, genuinely, I know I've thought about it. I really don't care. This is fine. But that's got to go, when it's the I don't care, that's got to go in the neutral zone. If you're a scorekeeper.
Right, you can't keep score on those kinds of things.
Right. I want to say this, keeping score is probably a bad idea anyway. But we can't do it. If
you don't care, then it wouldn't even dawn on you to keep score about it. Honestly, I think.
Yeah. But and I think it's just one of those experiential things. Sometimes what we experience is, this is going one way all the time, and it's never going my way.
Yeah.
And so just being, and I think say that too. It's like I kind of feel like every decision.
Know what it is you want.
Yep.
Create a few sentences of backstory.
Yep.
Make sure your partner knows where you're coming from.
Yep.
And communicate.
Yep.
Don't assume.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Bye.